rise to give my end-of-week statement, where I wish to highlight the dire need to strengthen the powers of the Environmental Impact Assessment Unit of the Department of Environment in light of recent incidences of grave environmental degradation in Fiji, some of which have only come to light recently. So Fiji has now ratified all of the major global human rights treaties, including last year's ratification of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. And so environmental protection is essential to fulfill many of the rights recognized in these agreements. Mr. Speaker, so my following comments therefore should not be taken by the Honourable Minister as an attack on his department's competency. Rather, because I offer feedback, observations and suggestions after having consulted with stakeholders from environmental law, from civil society and from environmentally minded members of the public, I hope the Honourable Minister will take on board the points I highlight as I lobby for more resources for the EIA unit, as we are all stakeholders in this plight. The report by the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights and Environment, Dr. David Boyd, at the end of his visit to Fiji in December, made a number of significant observations regarding the Environment Management Act and in particular the EIA process. For the information of honourable members and the public, sir, Dr. Boyd is an environmental lawyer and an internationally renowned expert on human rights and the environment who was appointed by the UN Human Rights Council last year. I was able to accompany Dr. Boyd and his colleague Dr. Su Yang Huan on several of their site visits in Suva during their stay here. In his report, Sir, Dr. Boyd said it was clear that the Ministry of Environment is seriously under-resourced. For example, according to the Department of Environment website, under the heading Challenges, the website says one of the major challenges is the lack of financial and technical resources. Currently, there are only 5 to 6 staff who handle waste and pollution-related matters Fiji-wide as part of its waste management and pollution control unit. The report goes on to recognize Fiji as a regional leader in recognizing the right to a healthy environment, having ratified multilateral environmental agreements as well as the human rights treaties I mentioned earlier. But sir, the report stressed that we must have a strong Ministry of Environment to fulfill those commitments. An issue Dr. Boyd said had been raised repeatedly with him were problems with EIA, or the impact assessments, with members of the public expressing to him frustration with their inability to gain easy, timely and affordable access to important information, the lack of adequate consultation, constraints on the public's ability to participate in assessment processes, the poor quality of some EIA reports, and the lack of access to remedies. Some examples include proposed mining projects and also the raising of the Wainisavulevuia in Neitasiri. So Dr. Boyd had heard from landowners about extensive mineral exploration activities affecting their lands without consultation and before the completion of any environmental assessment. Dr. Boyd agreed with me and many others and called the fee of $4.85 per page for an EIA report excessive, suggesting that it be waived for individuals and groups seeking to protect the environment and human rights. I personally think, sir, that EIA reports should be public documents available to the public for free. This is basic transparency and good governance. So the Environment Management Act of 2005 provides for the appointment of an environmental tribunal, but there is no publicly available information regarding its members, procedures or decisions. Rules governing the tribunal were published in 2013, but the absence of other public information makes the process just as clear as mud. Dr. Boyd made an excellent suggestion, sir, in encouraging Fiji to consider creating an online environmental registry that would make extensive information publicly available, including permit applications and decisions, pollution data, and enforcement actions that have been taken. And such a registry would enhance the public's ability to participate meaningfully in environmental decision-making in Fiji. Mr. Speaker, so the following are comments gathered from my consultations with environmental law experts and conservationists working in and around Fiji and based on a number of the cases reported to them by communities. They all agree, sir, that the department does not have enough expertise, capacity or resources to adequately implement the Act and assessments, the EIAs. Also highlighted, sir, was an apparent lack of proper and meaningful consultation in 2 cases from Lautoka are prime examples. Field 40 in Lautoka, where a cement factory is placed right at the edge of a large community with only a road separating the community from the cement factory. Here, families have been complaining about health, noise, and many other issues associated with having a factory placed in their backyard. In Wakambuli Paipai River, between Lautoka and Ba, representatives of a community complained about gravel extraction, affecting all aspects of their livelihood. The human cost is high, sir. Generations of families have lived in the area, and some risk losing their livelihoods. May I dwell briefly, sir, on terms of reference, or TORs. In some instances, the TORs, which guide the content required of the EIAs, have tended to be generic rather than specific to the proposed development. Case in point, sir, building a jetty at Maui Bay had the same TOR as magma mines for mining in the Singatoka River. The TOR must be developed to reflect not only the specific requirements of the law, but also to ensure that it is relevant to the type of development, so that risks that are specific to certain developments are properly assessed. This requires persons with relevant expertise and or knowledge about the type of development and able to provide relevant input to the TOR. The observation, sir, is that the DOE staff, or the Department of Environment staff, don't seem to be able to critically review EIA reports. Oftentimes the TORs are not fulfilled though the EIA was approved, and the reports are largely desktop surveys rather than new data. And if we don't have suitably qualified people in Fiji, can we not ask our friends Australia and New Zealand, in particular, to second us personnel with experience in the much more robust environmental regulation space? My consultations found issues with the way in which EIA consultants are hired, sir. The roster of the Department of Environment approved EIA consultants continues to include some that have undertaken and have been allowed to undertake their EIA consultancies with disregard to the TORs, contrary to the EIA procedures. So the DOE, the Department of Environment, must, in accordance with the Environmental Management Act, be equipped and be allowed to fully manage the whole EIA process, which appears not to be the case at present. The extent and manner in which the critical public consultations are to be conducted is ill-defined. The Environmental Department fails to accompany and monitor the manner in which a consultant conducts an EIA, in particular the extent and integrity of the public consultations. Currently, the Environmental Department frequently appears limited in its ability to monitor environmental issues, to take proactive measures to mitigate against environmental degradation, and also to respond when members of the environmentally concerned public draw its attention to cases of environmental degradation and seek its intervention. Public consultations are frequently not properly advertised. They are held during working hours. They are not minuted. They're not attended by the relevant town and council or by senior DOE personnel, suggesting that they do not take the development and the EIA process seriously. And at times it appears as though the public is only included in a box-ticking exercise in a pretense of public consultation process, when in reality the decision has already been made that the development will proceed irrespective of the concerns of the potentially affected community. So I know my time is running out. There's a lot more I'd like to say, and I'll take the opportunity when I get given the time. But as I wind up, sir, in case I've not convinced the House yet, here's a short story of my own. Last year, some friends of mine in Nandronga needed my help to file a complaint to the department about some dredging equipment which had come loose during a storm and had been thrown onto a reef just outside the mouth of the Singatoka River. These friends called the department, which informed them that they had to fill out the complaints form, which is not available on the website. So in order for my friends in Singatoka to file a complaint, I had to go to the department on McGregor Road for a hard copy, scan it, email it to Singatoka for them to download, fill, print out, scan, and email back to the department. Now, this is a small inconvenience for me, sir, but for people in the maritime and in areas where a lot of this degradation happens out of sight and out of mind, as it were, this is a very difficult process. And I asked the question on the comment section of the department's website on April the 17th last year. Yesterday, 14th of Feb 2019, some 10 months later, my comment was, and I quote from the website, "still awaiting moderation." And my comment on the website last year was to request that the complaint form be made available on the website. Mr. Speaker, as I end, I just want to I want to say thank you to whichever department of Parliament put these messages on our desks on Monday. Dare I say someone was listening to my maiden speech where I pointed out the amount of single-use plastic bottles that this House uses, and I thank the Department for listening. Thank you very much, Sir Binaka.